in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alternation of night and day, in the ships that sail the ocean, bearing cargoes beneficial to man, in the water which God sends down from the sky, and with which he revives the earth after its death, scattering over all kinds of animals, in the course of the winds, in the clouds pressed into service between earth and sky, there are indeed signs for people who use their reason. On behalf of Center for Peace and Spirituality International, I'd like to welcome all of you to join us on the topic of discovery of God. The subject of God, as all of you would agree, concerns one and all. In today's discussion, we hope to find answers to many of the spiritual questions that are harbored within our minds. With that, I'd like to invite our first speaker for today afternoon, which is Ms. Maria Khan. Ms. Maria Khan is an Islamic Studies research scholar at Hamdard University, and I invite her to share her thoughts on the topic.
Thank you, Razia. Since I'm the first speaker, I'd like to share and discuss what I have learned and what I have discovered about God on the subject of the discovery of God through my own study and through my interaction with the Maulana and with other faith leaders. So it all begins with the fact that I have been a student of physics. I studied physics at college for 3 years. And whenever the subject of God came up, I wanted rational evidence for God. I did not want to believe in God as a blind faith. I wanted evidence based God. And I did not want to believe in God as we believe in superstitions. So I came across several reasonings, several proofs for the existence of God. And the one that perplexed me the most and the one that addressed me the most as a student of science was this whole concept of the fine tuning of the universe. Now, fine tuning means that the laws of science involve that there are certain fundamental constants in our universe. And the remarkable fact is that the values of those constants appear to be so finely adjusted that make life possible as we know it now. So this concept made me bewildered me totally. It amazed me. It astonished me. An example is the value of the cosmological constant, which is responsible for the acceleration of the universe at the current rate. And this constant has an extremely, extremely tiny value. And it had to have this value for stars to form, for galaxies to form, and for all of us to exist here and be present in this moment. So I thought to myself that if we require intelligence to understand all this, then we also require an intelligence with a capital I who put all of this in place in the first instance. So I got several proofs for the existence of God at the rational level. However, I must confess that I was not convinced. I was looking for something deeper. I was looking for something closer to my nature. I wanted to know, who is God? What relation does God have with me? What significance does God have for me in my own life? How do I understand that being who is the creator? So I did not want to believe in God as a distant entity, as a spectator God who is controlling the entire universe like a cosmic magician. I wanted a God who has relation with me, with whom I can understand my life. So I understood this phenomena when I was once interacting with an American lady who was my neighbor for several years. So she was a very devoutly religious person. She was a devout Christian. So once I was speaking to her about religion, and I asked her, what is it that makes you believe in religion so devoutly? What is it that makes you believe in God? So she revealed to me that she was a person who had a very good family, very loving children, a loving husband. She had a very nice home, and she had a life that kept her very busy. But all this while, she felt that there was something within her that was lacking. There was a void and a hollow within her. And this hollow and this void persisted uncomfortably until she turned to religion and she turned to God. And that is what made her believe in God. And this whole incident reminded me of some lines from Bertrand Russell's book on the conquest of happiness. Bertrand Russell writes that people have a feeling of deprivation in the midst of abundance. And he says that animals are happy and they become happy when they have enough to eat and they have a healthy and a secure life. And similarly, human beings also should be happy in the modern world. But we see that they are not happy in a great majority of cases. And I realized that this was also my own case. I reflected afterwards and I realized that I was also suffering from a feeling of vacuum. And I realized that this vacuum cannot be fulfilled unless I believe in God. So the proof for God does not exist somewhere out there. It exists in my own being. If I reflect on the state of my own being, I realize that I will not have a sense of meaning in life, a sense of fulfillment, unless I believed in God. And this meaningfulness, I realize, does not come by merely paying lip service to God, by merely having a belief in God. I realize that this meaningfulness comes when you believe in God and you have a deep relationship with Him. And this point became very clear to me when I read a book, a very famous book, which is considered a Christian classic. It's called In Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. And he says that we human beings have to aspire to a relational experience with God. We have to have an intimate acquaintance with God. And the Quran calls it having strong affection for God. So that is the kind of relationship which I wanted with God. And that is the kind of relationship that finally addressed me on the topic of God. So the Prophet of Islam has said that there should be moments in the life of a believer when he remembers God in solitude and his eyes are filled with tears. So this kind of communion with God fills a person with peace even in moments of deep crisis. So only yesterday or day before yesterday, I was listening to an interview of a very famous Hollywood actor, Antonio Banderas. So he had a 3 decade long career in Hollywood as an actor, as a director, and singer. And sometime back, he suffered a heart attack, a very sudden, surprising, shocking heart attack because he was in the prime of his health. He had an excellent health. So he said in the interview that this experience of heart attack, it made him suffer in solitude, made him experience suffering and solitude. And he said that it changed him at a very, very deep level and made him sensitive. So I realized that these moments of crisis, which we all go through, sometimes at a smaller level, sometimes at a greater level, I think these moments of crisis are very important for the discovery of God. They actually involuntarily lead us to God. Because when we feel utterly helpless, Antonio Banderas said that I felt that I am really vulnerable. In reality, my state is a state of vulnerability. I am actually very insecure. So I realized when you feel this helplessness, this utter state of helplessness, you're involuntarily, your nature calls out to God in that state of helplessness because you want a being who compensates your feeling of helplessness and your feeling of powerlessness. And this occasion draws a person very near to God. And I'm reminded of an incident from the life of the Prophet of Islam. The Prophet was once, the Prophet was migrating from Mecca to Medina because he was expelled, because people opposed his mission vehemently. So when he had to migrate from Mecca to Medina, he was accompanied by only a single person, a very close companion of his, and they both were actually fleeing Mecca to migrate to Medina. And they took refuge in a cave. And those people who were pursuing him to kill the prophet reached the cave as well. So when his companion saw that the pursuers had reached the cave, he said to the prophet, "O prophet, these people have reached here as well. Now what do we do?" He shuddered in fear. And the prophet said, what do you think of those two who have God as their third companion? So I think these moments, difficult moments, in these difficult moments, we discover God because we feel utterly helpless. And this remembrance of God brings a lot of comfort, a lot of peace, and a lot of solace. So, involuntarily and automatically, our nature calls out to God in these very difficult moments. And turning to God in these difficult moments is a way of crisis management because many people often end up suffering from tension. They lose hope, they lose courage, they become totally disheartened. And some people even commit suicide if they see no light at the end of the tunnel. So I was once speaking to a senior member of our center when we were in the plane returning from another city to Delhi. And he said to me that he had been sorrowful and he had been grieving over certain issues for several years. But when he discovered God, when he started on his journey of discovering God, he felt as if all his issues, which he had been concerned for, which had stressed him, and which had made him so sad and gloomy, he felt those issues had become so trivial and so insignificant. So I think the discovery of God is a kind of, you feel you have a sense of loss, but when you discover God, you don't feel that loss. You have loss, but you don't feel loss. So this person said to me that his loss, material loss, was converted into spiritual gain. So not only death and disaster and loss makes you discover God, makes you realize that you need a being whom you can take refuge in and who gives you comfort and solace. Even in everyday moments, I think one can discover God, one can realize God. And only some days back, I was very upset for a few days successively over an incident. And one morning, my husband came to me before leaving for work and he said to me that, why are you sad when God has given you so much? And this was a very plain and a very simple statement. And I think he doesn't even remember it now. But for me, it really shook me and it remained with me throughout the day. And I thought that, yes, God has blessed me so much. Why am I sad? I'm enjoying so many bounties, so many blessings of God. I mean, if you have sunlight entering your room, you have the right amount of oxygen in the air, you have fresh water to drink, you have cooked food ready for you to eat. So I'm truly blessed. So the 1% thing over which I had been complaining all this while, now I turned my attention to the 99% that God had given me. And that filled me with a sense of positivity, with gratitude. So I think this belief in God and this discovery of God, process of discovering God, changes you and transforms you at a very deep level. And this whole concept is called tadabbur in the Quran, or tawassum. That is taking lessons from everyday events, learning, constantly remembering God from everything that is happening around you. So something might be very commonplace, very ordinary, very usual, but trying to convert and discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary event. That is a very important way of establishing contact with God and developing an emotional bond with God. And it leads you to thank God from the depth of your heart. And this makes me comes to a very important concept which I learned from the Bhagavad Gita. There is a concept called sannyasa or sannyas. And the commentary that I was reading was from Swami Chinmayananda. And he says that sannyas or sannyasa generally means running away from the world. But he says that I refute this. Sannyas does not mean running away from the world or abandoning the world. Sannyas basically means the art of living in the world, wherever you be, whatever you be doing, whatever profession you may have, and having a life devoted to God and living a godly life. It does not mean running away from the world, escaping from the world, going to the mountains, or wearing a specific attire which monks wear to signify that you're godly. It's living in the world in the midst of people and behaving in a godly way. And Molana also said to me once that if you are a prepared mind, every event, every incident will trigger you and make you remember God. So I was recently watching a documentary on the cosmos. It's called Cosmos, the Space Time Odyssey. So in that I was just thrilled and filled with awe at the mere vastness of the universe, of the scale of the universe. It filled me with awe. And that's why it is said that astronomy is a humbling discipline. And not only astronomy, I think even if you go to the very small level, if you go to the microscopic level, and you see that at the microscopic level, the physics that works is quantum mechanics. And it tells us basically that a particle, no particles at the microscopic level have a very probabilistic and uncertain behavior. So scientists say that we cannot determine with perfect exactitude what is happening at the microscopic level, and that makes them feel that human beings cannot determine what's happening at the microscopic level, not because our theories are faulty, not because our equipment has a shortcoming. It's because we by nature have an inability, human beings have an inability to understand what is happening at the microscopic level. We need a super being to understand what's happening there. So all this realization, this study and observation, as Molana says, every study, every observation, every experience should trigger your mind such that you can discover God, an aspect of God, a divine attribute. And I'd like to just end by saying that although being a student of physics, I have always wanted a rational proof, I wanted logic, I wanted reasoning, but after my interactions with Molana and after I turned to religion in the true sense, I felt that when you discover God at the level of inner feelings, in the way that Hollywood actor discovered, in the way that American lady discovered, in the way the member of CPS whom I was talking about, when you discover God at that inner psychological level, at the level of your feelings, that discovery of God gives you such deep conviction and strong conviction that you will not require any rational argument. It is stronger than any kind of rational argument. It's the kind of love that you have for your mother. You cannot prove that she's your mother, but you have that inner feeling of love. So that is how I have been able to understand God. I'd like to end by a saying uh, from the prophet's life. The prophet once said that a discerning person should have some special moments in his life: a moment of communion with God, a moment of self-examination, and a moment of reflection over the mysteries of creation, and a moment which he puts aside for eating and drinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for that insightful talk. I think it was, and for sharing with us how our everyday experiences and the moments of crisis, particularly, can help us build that relational experience or the strong affection with a higher being and our Creator. Thank you for that. I now would like to invite on our second speaker for the day, which is Dr. Rajat Malhotra. He's a member of CPS International and an investment professional. He is extremely passionate about interfaith dialogue and has a doctorate in Islamic studies. Dr. Rajat.
Thank you, Razia. Well, I would start by saying that belief in God runs in our blood. Every man and woman is a born believer. You can say that every person is born twice in his or her lifetime. The first is a physical birth for which our parents are instrumental. And the second birth is a spiritual birth which one attains by his or her own efforts. Now, the discovery of God, as Maria also mentioned, starts with seeking. Seeking means activating your mind, your eyes, and your ears. And here I would like to say that if a person is a seeker, he's bound to reach to his goal. This is a divine law of nature which is immutable. It was very well expressed by the words of Jesus Christ, who said, "Ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you." So I found a very good expression of the spirit of these words in the sayings of great Swami Vivekananda ji. He said, "Arise, awake, and stop not till you reach your goal." So it is impossible for anyone who is imbued with the spirit of questing spirit not to achieve his goal. The problem is that most of the time, as Maria also mentioned, that people ask for rational basis for the existence of God. They want a scientific explanation for the inner feelings. Now, there is nothing wrong with it. There is a scientific explanation, for God's existence. But the problem is that people fail to discover it because they apply a criteria which is neither scientific and nor a right criteria to judge. They want to find the explanation of God in terms of observation. And observation based criteria is certainly not the right criteria. On a different level, I would like to narrate a personal experience that I had, which was about 8 years ago, and it was a lifetime experience, a life changing experience for me. I decided to do my master's course, and I went to Kerala to do it from Kerala University. When I landed in Kerala, I mean, I had no friend, no relative, I knew no one in that city. So after I took my first exam, I had to take about 8 papers over a period of 30 days, 1 month. But after taking the first exam, I started experiencing lower back problem. And by late afternoon and late evening, it became a full blown back problem. I was very scared because I had 7 more papers, nobody with me in Kerala. And I was lying on the bed, looking at the high ceiling of the room. Negative thoughts just started hitting me from left, right, and center. I started visualizing that I'm being airlifted in an air ambulance, and the sinking feeling that I will let everybody down, my guru, Maulana Waiduddin Khan Sahib down, and everybody down. And my dream of doing PhD was just vaporizing in the negative thoughts. But then something very interesting happened. At the peak of this negativity and excruciating pain, which was unbearable, I began to talk with God. I started telling God about my helplessness, about my pain. And then I said to God that, God, you've created this entire universe, you've created this entire mankind, and you want every single soul to live in peace and harmony. My objective of doing this course is to work in that direction and to propagate the message of peace and harmony. How can you let me fail? And I remember that while I was doing this conversation, uh, courage began to come within me. My negative thoughts started turning to positive, and I said to myself that I'm not going to give up. So I called up my orthopedic surgeon in Delhi, and he advised me some SOS medicine. I remember walking up to that chemist shop was the longest walk of my life because it was just less than 3 minutes distance, but I took 30 minutes to reach there to get my SOS medicine, a back belt, and I came back, lied on the bed, and began to study. 2 days later, my wife Stuti came from Delhi to help me and get me better, and I completed my 7 papers in over the next 30 days. The When I look back, I realize God's way of help and His presence. He did not come in person to help me, but He showered His blessings in unexpected ways. I realized that how my guru, Maulana Waiduddin Khan Sahib, and CPS members prayed for me, how great courage and sakina, which is calmness of heart, descended upon me. How getting an auto rickshaw every day was so super easy, as if he was waiting for me to take to the examination center. How I got accommodation in YMCA in Trivandrum, which was a great blessing for me. And how Stuti came from Delhi when she had never traveled in her life alone, and how forgotten lines started coming while I was writing my exam. So, the point that I'm trying to make is that this is the story of every man and woman played in one or the different ways. All men and women, like Maria also mentioned beautifully, that we suffer from limitations when we are not able to achieve what we want to do in life. Each one of us experience illness, accident, old age, death in the family. Now, all these experiences just remind us that there is a superior being, and we are in need of that superior being to get on with our life. These feelings, I would say, amount to the psychological proof of the existence of God. We go through this psychological experience at some point of time in our life. So, without God, we cannot continue. Without God, we cannot succeed in life. I realized that the key in life is leading a God-oriented life. Now, how do we define this God-oriented life, and how does it really changes us? I found a very good example from the cosmic world to define God-oriented life. We all know that Earth is the satellite of the sun, and it takes full 1 year to rotate around the sun. Now, this rotation or this movement of Earth around the sun is very essential for the healthy functioning of life on Earth. You and I would not exist if this rotation does not happen. So this gives us a very good practical demonstration that how we should lead our lives in this world. Just as the earth revolves around the sun, similarly we should revolve around all, or we should base all our activities around God. The important difference is that while the earth as a satellite revolves on compulsive law of nature, it has to revolve, but man has free will. So when man with this free will surrenders to God with full consciousness, this consciousness is the real ascension of man, and in this consciousness lies the success, the key to all the success. Let me explain to you that how the life gets transformed when we lead, a God oriented life. The first biggest transformation that a person who leads a God oriented life experiences is that he becomes modest. Now, modesty is an incomparable virtue. The Quran has this to say in chapter 25, verse 63. Quran says, "The true servants of the gracious one are those who walk upon the earth with humility. And when they are addressed by the ignorant ones, their response is peace." So, modesty is an essential aspect of human life in thinking, in speech, in behavior, in dealing when somebody is angry or he provokes you. A modest person would just say, let's not quarrel and let's go our own way. So, a person who's leading a God oriented life is modest in complete sense of the word. Modesty has two benefits. The first benefit is that a person becomes a better member of the society. And secondly, it opens the door to knowledge. A person who is a seeker, he will be imbued with the seeking, with the spirit of learning. So, a modest person will try to learn from everyone, irrespective of age, religion, or status. So, I would say that it's the master formula for all kinds of success. The opposite of modesty, of course, is arrogance, which closes the door of blessings of God for any person. Now, the other important thing that changes a person when he leads a God oriented life is that the person becomes a patient personality. Quran says a lot, it emphasizes a lot on patience, on sabr. It says in chapter 39, verse 10, "Truly those who persevere patiently will be requited without measure." Now, this is very amazing because in the entire Quran, such a verse has not appeared for any other deed. So, only for patience, Quran says that the reward is countless. This means that patience and reward are inseparable. So, what patience really does is it helps in developing a person's personality. So personality development is one of the most important quality that a person has. It separates a man from an animal. And the source of this personality development is patience. In fact, in reality, we all are born with unlimited potential, and this potential starts to unfold as soon as man is born. And I want to give an allegorical reference from Quran. It's a beautiful reference. Personally, I like this reference a lot. It's full of wisdom. It's in chapter 14, verse 24 to 25. Quran says, "Have you not considered how God sets forth a parable of a good word like a good tree? Its root is firm and its branches are in the sky. It yields its fruit each season with its Lord's permission." God makes such comparison for people in order that they may reflect. So, good man is like a good tree. But why is man being compared to a tree? Because if you look at a tree, it starts with a seed, but then a seed turns into a plant and then into a stronger tree trunk and then into branches and to leaves and flowers and fruits. So, what we learn from here is that just as the tree is transforming physically, men and women must develop the same qualities in terms of morality. Every human being should be stronger like a tree trunk. His character should be as vibrant as leaves. He should be as fruitful to the society. And just like, a tree gives oxygen to everyone, similarly, man should provide shelter to his or her fellow beings. The important thing here is that, a tree is a unilateral member of the world. It's a giver member of the world. It does not, for example, it gives us free oxygen but does not send us a bill. So similarly, men and women should live in this society as a giver member of the society. And that's how the society becomes beautiful. Here, I want to just add one point that one of the biggest hindrance of a personality development or unfolding of one's potential is a negative response to unwanted situation. We all face negative situations, and this negative situations, if we give a negative response, it obstructs the natural growth of a person. So the important point is to live in a society in a manner which does not impact a person. Now we get a very good example from nature, from honeybee. We all know that a honeybee goes from its hive in search of nectar. In its journey to the flower, it encompasses a lot of difficulties, including the thorns that are there in the flowers. But it doesn't complain. It just goes to the flower, it retrieves the nectar, and it comes back. So the great symbolic lesson that we are getting here from the honeybee is that do not protest, do not complain. Take what is desirable and leave what is undesirable. This way, you will be able to lead a life which will help in unfolding your potential. Leading a focused life not only helps in avoiding being provocative, but it also helps in not disrupting your concentration. So, adopting a honeybee culture is one great example that we have for all of us. The other thing that I want to mention, the third thing, is that a person who leads a God oriented life, he experiences peace of mind. Now, everybody, I mean, in this room or people who are watching this live, this program, they would agree that peace of mind is a rare phenomena. We all want peace of mind, but we don't get it. Most of the time, people are in negativity or in depression. So, what is the solution to this problem? Quran gives a solution in unequivocal terms. It says in chapter 13, verse 28, those who believe and whose hearts find comfort in the remembrance of God, surely in the remembrance of God, hearts can find comfort. So the lesson that we are getting here is that remembrance of God is the key to peace of mind. Now, here, remembrance of God does not mean chanting of the word God. It basically means that one is content with the creation plan of God, with the divine plan of God. What is this divine plan of God? Now, according to the creation plan, every person is created as an ideal seeking animal. We all want perfection. We all want ideal life. But the world around us has limitation. And it is this gap between a seeker and an achievement that creates negativity, that creates disruption in the mind. So in this situation, the formula that we need to adopt is to adjust yourself to the external world rather than try to mold the world according to your own desires. One should learn the art of desire management. I remember, Maulana Waiduddin Khan Sahab, my guru, he always has been emphasizing one very important principle. He says that if you want to have a peaceful life or a successful life, and if you want to be connected with God, there is just one formula that you all need to adopt. And it's an age old saying, which is simple living and high thinking. It's very important that we rediscover this principle that he emphasizes a lot. And I want to give an example here. This is also my last part of the talk, because if this not understood can really derail the discovery of God and also in leading a God oriented life. In a society or in a world, we are always told that the measure of success is how wealthy we are. Uh, in fact, I would even say that many of us who are sitting here, or the parents, all of us, we always, say that we never say that work hard to discover God. The narrative has always been work hard, to get a good job, a big house, or corporate fame, or, overseas vacation. So the narrative has always been, the other way around. So I want to share this heartbreaking, real, tragic story of Dr. Richard Teo Kang Siang. He was a millionaire Singapore cosmetic surgeon who died at an early age of 40 years. In fact, he shifted from the field of ophthalmology to cosmetic surgery, and he raked in millions of dollars. He had supercars, He used to dine at the fanciest of the restaurants, brush his elbows with the richest of the elite. But he regretted in life. When his days were numbered, he said that I regret that I focused my life in making money and I neglected God. He said that one of the valuable lessons that I've learned in life is that there is more to life than to money. Dying of cancer, Dr. Richard says that the source of happiness or the joy is not in money. For all you know, money could be the source of all the evil. In fact, he said famously now that I'm a typical product of a society. As a child, I was always influenced and impressed by the fact that, to be happy is to be successful. And to be successful means how wealthy you are. And I led my life with this motto. So when I read this article, of Dr. Richard Teo, it really shook me up and it reminded me one of the verse from chapter 102 of Quran, verse 1 to 3, where Quran says, greed for more and more distracted you from the remembrance of God till you reached your grave. So man foolishly thinks that accumulating of wealth is akin to adding to the success. Money is not a goal in itself. Money helps in meeting your physical requirements, but man is more than money. Man is more than physical entity. Man is a intellectual being. While materialism can help you to a certain extent, but if you focus on intellectual development, the field is vast. You can keep on unfolding your potential as long as you are alive. So for both men and women, money oriented thinking is the greatest source of distraction from the right path. Man is greater than money. Swami Vivekananda ji said, the life is short, the vanities of the world are transient, and people who live for materialism are more dead than alive. So we have very less time on earth, and journey is incomplete without discovering the true purpose of life. At several places, Quran says that when the day of reckoning comes, you will feel as if you have lived for only one morning and one evening. So all that accumulation that we are doing is for one morning and one evening. So before it's too late, I would say that we should think and discover what is the true purpose of life, what is the real meaning of life. Urdu poet Fani beautifully summarizes it. He says that फरेबे जलवा और कितना मुकम्मल ए माजल्ला बड़ी मुश्किल से दिल को अपने बज़ में आलम से उठा पाया. Meaning that this glitter of the world, it looks so mukammal, it looks so complete. You feel as if this is everything, this is reality. So he says, with great difficulty, I was able to detach myself from the material world. So I would just say in the end that discovery of God and then remembrance of God gives the real happiness and prepares us to lead a successful life. May God guide us and may God help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajat. It was a very important lesson how the discovery of God and finding that purpose can truly satiate the intellectual beings that we are and makes us a better member of the society. Thank you for that.